right, everybody, welcome back. You ready to dive in? Today we're tackling sickle cell disease.
Absolutely. Should be fascinating.
I think it's going to be really interesting to sort of trace how this single gene mutation can end up impacting the whole body.
Yeah. It's really a cascade, like a domino effect, right?
Totally, yeah. So I guess for anyone who might not be super familiar with the basics of genetics, I mean, we've all got these genes, right? And they're like our own personal instruction manuals.
Exactly. They tell our bodies how to build proteins, which basically do all the work. And when those instructions have a typo, things can go wrong.
Okay, so that's where the HBB gene comes in, right? This is the one that's kind of at the heart of sickle cell.
Yeah, so everyone inherits 2 copies of this HBB gene,
Hmm.
one from each parent. And this gene is super important because it holds the instructions for making hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin. That rings a bell. It's something to do with our red blood cells, isn't it?
Absolutely. Hemoglobin is a protein inside red blood cells that carries oxygen throughout the body. It's like, imagine tiny little cargo ships carrying oxygen to all your cells.
Okay, that makes sense. So then with sickle cell, the instructions for making this hemoglobin, they get messed up somehow.
Right. So in sickle cell disease, both copies of the HBC gene have a specific mutation. This leads to the production of abnormal hemoglobin, which we call hemoglobin S or HbS.
HBS, gotcha. So this HBS, it's different and it causes problems
Just
because...
exactly. Think of it like this. You're trying to build a house, and the blueprint says to use square bricks. But with this mutation, the bricks are coming out sickle-shaped.
Oh, I see. So they're not going to fit together quite as well.
Exactly. Instead of nice flexible walls, you get something rigid and distorted. And that's kind of what happens with red blood cells in sickle cell.
Oh, wow. Because normally red blood cells, they're supposed to be super flexible, right? They're squeezing through these tiny blood vessels all over the place.
Yeah, they're amazing. But with HbS, the red blood cells become stiff and sickle-shaped, and that's where the disease gets its name from.
Right, of course. Okay, so these stiff, sickle-shaped cells,
Mm,
what happens? They just can't move around as well.
exactly. They get stuck in the blood vessels, causing blockages. And because they're blocking the flow, tissues and organs don't get the oxygen they need.
And that's where those really painful crises come from that people with sickle cell experience, right?
Yeah, the pain can be excruciating.
Hmm.
And to make matters worse, these blockages can also damage tissues and organs over time because of the lack of oxygen.
So it's not just a blood disorder, it's really affecting the whole body.
Right. And the complications can be really serious. We're talking increased risk of stroke, organ damage, particularly to the kidneys, lungs, and spleen. It can affect almost any part of the body.
Wow, that's really scary. So we've got this gene mutation leading to abnormal hemoglobin, leading to misshapen blood cells, leading to blockages and pain, and all these other complications. It's amazing how one tiny change can have such a huge ripple effect.
It really is. And, it makes you wonder, if this mutation is so problematic, why hasn't evolution gotten rid of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. You'd think it would have been weeded out by now.
Well, there's actually a fascinating reason for that. In some parts of the world where malaria is common, having one copy of the mutated gene, what we call sickle cell trait, can actually be an advantage.
Really? Hold on, I thought you had to have 2 copies of the mutation to have sickle cell disease.
Right. You need 2 copies to have the full-blown disease. But having just one copy, it's like a half-and-half situation. It offers some protection against malaria, which is a huge threat in those regions.
Wow. So in those environments, having sickle cell trait is actually beneficial. That's incredible.
Exactly. It shows how complex the interplay between genetics and environment can be.
So it's like a trade-off, right? In some parts of the world, there's this evolutionary pressure to keep the sickle cell gene around because of the malaria protection.
Exactly. It's a classic example of what we call balanced polymorphism.
This is all so fascinating, and it really speaks to the importance of understanding this disease on a deeper level, right? Because clearly there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Absolutely. And thankfully, there's a lot of really exciting research going on right now that's focused on developing new treatments and potentially even cures for sickle cell disease.
That's really encouraging. What are some of the promising areas of research?
One of the most promising areas is gene therapy. Scientists are working on ways to actually correct the faulty HBB gene at its source.
Wow. So basically rewriting those genetic instructions to make sure the body produces normal hemoglobin.
Yet there are also a lot of other approaches being investigated, like new medications to manage symptoms and prevent complications, as well as bone marrow transplants, which can essentially replace the faulty blood-producing cells with healthy ones.
It's incredible to think how far we've come in terms of understanding and treating this
Yeah, I
disease.
agree. And while there's still much to be done, I'm very optimistic about the future for people with sickle cell disease.
That's so great to hear. It really is a testament to the power of scientific research and the dedication of so many brilliant minds working towards a cure.
Absolutely. It's amazing what we can achieve when we work together to tackle these complex health challenges.
It really makes you think about all the other mysteries hidden within our genes and the potential for scientific breakthroughs to unlock solutions for countless other diseases, too.
Absolutely. The future of medicine is incredibly exciting. Who knows what amazing discoveries await us?
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into sickle cell disease. A huge thank you to you for breaking down this complex topic with such clarity and insight.
My pleasure. It's been a great discussion.
To all our listeners, keep those questions coming and keep exploring the fascinating world of science. Until next time.